My name is Valerie. I'm the nonprofit outreach lead at Vis for Social Good. And on the call today, we also have Rick, one of our executive director that most of you already know. Thank you for joining us for the volunteer showcase of the promise of Gen AI. The objective of this project was to use a Gen AI tool to tell the story of the state of the world children 2023 dataset from the UNICEF. 5 people submitted their work, and 3 will be presenting their project today. I have shared the link in the chat. Each presenter will have 10 minutes to introduce themselves and explain how they use a Gen AI tool to tell the story of the data, focusing on what worked and what didn't. So I think we have only one lady. So Astrid, if you're ready, nice to start with the lady.
I actually did put together some slides because they helped me to not go overboard with the time. So I might just try to share those.
Yeah, down at the bottom, there should be a share with the green, like a little green button. Oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
So it's coming. Start screen sharing.
It's loading.
There it goes.
Yeah, thank you.
See PowerPoint. Yep.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah. So I had close this so I can read my screen. Yeah, the goal, this is what I took from the Vis for Social Good website. And I was really interested in figuring out how can AI help me in the DataVis process. It's actually, I think, Valerie, you got me started when this project was launched with the possibility of using that to work with Excel and files other than text. So yeah, my question was, how can AI either help me save time or improve the quality of the result? Because that's where that were the two reasons why I would use a generative AI in the process. And then the question was, or the solution is, what type of task can ChatGPT really help me with? And then I stumbled across some problems to solve next. So that's basically what I was looking at. I was focusing more on a workflow to get to data visualization more than the output of the data set itself. So when I looked at the provided data set, I realized I was probably running out of time to do a proper visualization where I was confident that everything was correct in terms of content. So I just focused, yeah, on the workflow itself. So splitting up the one file with 19 sheets into 19 files, separate files, cleaning up the column headings, doing some data cleaning, seeing if ChatGPT could help with that, and then brainstorming for this generation, and testing an individual visualization as well as more of a case study. Maybe because this gives you some context, my personal background. So I've got background as an academic researcher. Excel proficiency is kind of medium. I don't do the VBA programming stuff. I'm currently learning Tableau, and I've got no programming skills. So just so you can place what I was doing into that kind of context. And then I've taken a few shortcuts because this was just meant to be a proof of concept. So I wasn't actually checking the output of ChatGPT as thoroughly as I would have if I was going to publish the data. In terms of what solutions, where did ChatGPT really help? I came to 5 main points, and they are here. So one is executing repetitive tasks. That's where I could save time. Data cleaning and quality control, that was also faster and improved the quality. Basically having also a second pair of eyes looking at at what I was doing. Brainstorming ideas and obtaining feedback that improved quality, not necessarily speed of execution. Learning and enlarging my skill set so that I could do things while ChatGPT was, for example, using Python. I could do things that I alone wouldn't have been able to do because it could operate Python and I can't. And maybe this is a question mark, but maybe some health benefits, because I think it was significantly less clicking with the mouse than if I had done all these changes in Excel myself. And here, some details on that. So faster execution of repetitive tasks. One of the repetitive tasks was to turn these sheets that originally came in this format into something where each column had a unique header that contained this bit plus this bit plus this bit, and getting ChatGPT to actually understand the column headings correctly and then automatically deliver these unified headings was a bit of a process. So for the first sheet, it took me 2.5 hours to basically learning to communicate how to talk to the code interpreter part of ChatGPT. For example, if I see an empty column, for me it's empty, but then for ChatGPT, I need to talk about float and integers, and so I had to learn this programming terminology to be actually more precise in my instructions to the GPT, and then also the output got a lot better. So after the initial misunderstandings, we got down to 30 minutes per sheet, and I think that could have then, from then on, I did only the first 5, and after that, I think we could have gotten the speed down further. And at that point, like if it was batch processing, I think a GPT would then really help me save time. The bigger the larger the number of the repetitive sheets is. What I still had to do is check every single step for errors, because they did happen. And and I felt like there was no way around having to check errors myself. So that also, again, takes time again. In terms of data cleaning and quality control, I first tried with normal ChatGPT, and then I went on to design a custom GPT for these kinds of tasks, and that went much better. So then I could iteratively, after every step of cleaning, I could feed the results of the cleaning as the basis for analysis into the custom GPT, and that meant it was up to date with the latest stage of what we did, and could do the next step of the analysis based on that. And iteratively, it got much more focused. That was, I think, a problem I encountered along the way, that it was sometimes hard to keep ChatGPT a bit focused on what we were actually trying to do, because it always has so many ideas. Improved quality through joint brainstorming and feedback. That was really helpful to get feedback on my ideas and also get ChatGPT to brainstorm. So when we started brainstorming with the final data set, which basically were the first 5 sheets of the provided data set, together we came up with this idea of doing a meta-analysis first of data availability, checking for which countries we do have data on which parameters. ChatGPT suggested an interesting visualization with the top 15 parameters for a standard deviation between so it measures the dispersion of the data set relative to its mean. And then I wanted to check, I wanted to build the same thing in Tableau just to see if it's actually possible or if it was dreaming up stuff. But it actually, with the data that was available, I could recreate the exact same visualization, and the numbers are correct so as well. So that's what I wanted to see. Is it actually true what it designs here? yeah, enlarging my skill set. So that was basically doing things. ChatGPT was able to do things with Excel that would have taken me a long time to do. For example, for this data availability visualization, I just wanted to know, is there an entry in this top sheet here, everything that has a number here converted to a 1 and everything that didn't converted to a 0. And I wouldn't have known so easily how to do that in Excel. But telling ChatGPT, this is what I want, it came out, yeah, within seconds. There were a few maybe trials where it got something wrong, but that was much faster. Basically because of maybe my limitations of skills there. It was also a patient teacher, because at the beginning I was giving it apparently illogical prompts, and it didn't really know what to do with that. And when I asked it to explain what an ideal prompt would have looked like, it gave me a really helpful answer, and then I could learn from that, and next time I could write a better prompt. And that actually really sped up the process of getting sheets transformed. Yeah, and that's the result. Like the Tableau link is down here, so I've put this online. It's basically that bottom sheet visualized in a map, just to finally get to some viz in the end, which was the ultimate goal. And yeah, so the data are not the data in it. It's not to be taken too seriously. If this was really published, I would do a lot more quality checks first. Yeah, and then the less clicking and less sitting. I was wondering whether there's potential for increased ergonomy. I was using the mouse significantly less than if I would have done all the conversions in Excel myself. And that was actually quite nice for my hand and my arm. And I was thinking, if I then weren't even typing my prompts into ChatGPT, but just using spoken words and to give instructions, then I would have a lot more flexibility in terms of, am I sitting, am I standing, where am I while I'm doing this? So I was wondering whether that offers some options in the future. A few challenges remained. So controlling hallucination was a big one. For example, in this top right image, this is a suggestion by ChatGPT for a viz. And in this one, I think it actually confused mortality rate with mortality ratio. It somehow seemed to think it's the same thing, but actually they are two quite different parameters. So this viz was impossible to create from the given data set because it didn't have one or the other. And it looks quite, I'm tempted to be quite convinced when I see these interesting looking images, and ChatGPT is always writing very confidently about it. I'm tempted to believe it, and I realized I have to really check every single idea to see if there's hallucination happening or not. Another example for that was this visualization, which as a viz suggestion I thought was quite interesting. But it came up with these two colored lines for the thresholds from the World Health Organization for C-section rates. And they are actually totally dreamt up in the metadata, which I also fed into the custom GPT. The thresholds from the WHO are around 10 to 15%. And here it's saying it's 15 to 30%. And I checked that on the website of the WHO, and I couldn't find these thresholds that it's generating here. So I think this is completely dreamt up. And another example for why I felt like I have to be really careful with the output. Also task size. I learned at the beginning, I was giving it relatively big tasks, and that led to a lot of confusion and imprecise results. So I learned to make the tasks smaller, basically create them small enough so checking the result was quicker than doing the work myself. That seemed to be the sweet spot. So for example, here I was telling it to design a dashboard based on the given data, and this is completely useless. then also my expectations for the GPT. I had in hindsight, funny experience with the forgetfulness, because I was kind of behaving like I was talking to a human, and we were doing some of these Excel conversions, and then I took a break, and half an hour later I came back, and I was just assuming that, just like working with a human being, after half an hour they would still be up to date with what we had done half an hour ago, but not so ChatGPT. It had completely forgotten all about it, because I think there's limited memory, and it just tends to forget earlier parts of the conversation. And then it couldn't remember a thing of what was happening half an hour ago. And it said here, I apologize for the inconvenience caused by the expired session, blah, blah. And then I had to think about, well, how do I get it now up to speed about how far we've gotten and what the next steps are, and how do I word it so that it doesn't get confused, redoing things that we had already done. That's basically when I decided to go for a custom GPT, which was much better, but still it did forget stuff. So that was a lesson learned. Yeah, and then I realized that GPT was an assistant, not a lead. So I still had to guide the process, have clear intentions for the outcome of the project, and for how I wanted to error check every single step of the process. So I realized that the GPT is really helpful as an assistant, but it can't take the lead, mainly also because I think I couldn't get it to stay focused on a process sequence that was followed through. Yeah, and that's basically all of my experiences. So first experiences with getting ChatGPT to deal with Excel and myself.
Thank you
Nice.
very much, Astrid. I like the fact that you say that GPT is an assistant, because a lot of people are scared about AI taking over the job, but yeah, AI cannot work by himself. They always need a human to take the lead and provide the goal, and always double check the output and make sure the output is actually matching what you're looking for. So that's really great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So next will be Qiaolong.
Can I ask you a quick question? How did you have experience with a custom GPT before, or is that, like you were saying, were you asking it to give you suggestions of like how to solve, right, the gap or the forgetfulness of the half-hour rest, and then it recommended it? Like I only found out about making your own GPTs from somebody else who stumbled across it, right? So it seems to also be like that you only know what the GPT can do if you're aware of what the GPT can do. So I was kind of curious, like, how did you discover it? How did you stumble across that?
Yeah, that's probably something I forgot to mention. I was simultaneously to doing this project, I was doing an online class on prompt engineering, and they mentioned the custom GPT, and I also learned from that course a bit about prompt engineering, and there were examples, and so I had those two running in parallel, and so I think I learned from hands-on experience as well as from these classes. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. Thank you.
No, okay.
So we're talking about custom
class. I was gonna say, if you had the link to the class, if you could throw it in the chat. I think all of us are in the infancy of this entire process. So, but yeah, thank you.
And one of easy ways, if you go to the paid version of ChatGPT, you actually can see people putting their custom GPT. And it's really helpful, because you can see there's a lot of people who created some data analysis custom GPT. You can see how they did it. And then if you want to create your own custom GPT, you need to have the paid version. And it's always good to see what other people did. The same way when you work on Tableau Public, you see what people did, and then you're trying to create, and then you practice. And the more you practice, the more you learn. But you need to pay for that, fortunately.
I didn't know that. That's really useful to know. So it's in the Explore GPTs section in the custom GPT part of the navigation pane.
Yeah,
cool.
you
Yeah,
can
I'll
see
that.
custom GPT. Yeah, you should check. It's really interesting to see what people created.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Qiaolong, are you ready?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The
Thank you,
floor is
Melissa.
yours.
Okay, thank you. And hello, everyone. And I'm glad to have the chance to present my work through by using the ChatGPT. To I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. And yeah, I'm glad to have the chance to work on this volunteer program and also to share what I learned and how I use ChatGPT to help me do the data cleaning and analysis, and in the end, to craft a data story regarding the stunting among the children under 5 worldwide. And actually, I found this project quite interesting. First, because before that I currently am working as a BI engineer in a sport goods company in France, and few months ago I also took some trainings from the company about how to do some data storytelling. And I mean, then by accident, I found this interesting project which can combine what I learned about data storytelling. Meanwhile, to use ChatGPT to help me to do some analysis by using the UNICEF data to do something interesting and have some fun on my own. And yeah, and my topic is about how my topic is about to analyze the data from SOWC 2023 to find out the current situation of childhood stunting across the world. And so at the very beginning, as I usually I use for this time I select ChatGPT to try to understand and try to ask for the help from it to help me to do the data analysis and provide me some insight or inputs for my data viz. So at the beginning, I tried to upload the whole data table to ChatGPT without asking any question to see how it could interpret the data set. And it's super powerful here that it could clearly identify the different sheets within the data set, and also some the content about each sheet. This part I think is super. Sometimes it's quite efficient for us to have to quickly understand what's this data set about. And the next step is to the cleaning the data. When I have some ideas in my mind, for example, I would like to analyze something relevant for the trial malnutrition. So I would ask ChatGPT to select some sheets from within this data set, and it did a great job. But when I asked it to help me clean the data, it seems that it's true. I spend much time struggling with that, because maybe due to the formatting of the data set. Actually, when I did some descriptive analysis, it seems that the result is not correct. So during the cleaning process, I as I have many interactions with ChatGPT to try to help me correctly clean the data, but in the end, it doesn't work on my end. So I lost my patience in the end. So in the end, I manually I cleaned change the format and re-upload the data table to ChatGPT to ask it to clean the data and also deal with like such as null values. And yeah, and for this part, I think it works it works good. And then for the analyzing part, because I love data viz, and I did a lot of I did some work on data viz. So in this part after I have something in my mind to what to viz to build up my data story. So I start asking ChatGPT to draft some viz for me, And for this part, I found it's quite powerful because previously when I tried to create some Vs either through Python or for some other programming, it seems that I spend much time figuring to debug the code to create a Vs. But here, most of the code here are created by ChatGPT. And what I did is that, for example, I gave the instruction of, for example, I would like to add some legends or add some extra lines into the chat. So I will give the instruction to ChatGPT to ask it providing me the code to generate either the text, the lines to improve the data viz. So for this part, I think ChatGPT really save us a lot of time of making Vs and doing different kind of analysis. And after I have some chats here, I would like to continue to deep dive. For example, for my data story, I would like to have first a background, something to show the context for stunting children under 5. So I try to use a line chat to show the progress of number of children under 5 with stunting. And then go deep dive. We found by country, we found that there are some countries with still remain a high stunting rate with a positive or a growth rate of stunting number, which is not good, especially for some countries especially for 18 countries here. So I was wondering what kind of solution or actions we could take to accelerate the progress or the work to reduce the number of stunting rate under 5. So I was wondering maybe it will be interesting to find out, just based on the data set we have from SOWC, is it possible to find out some relevant, I would say, relevant variables which might also impact the stunting rate? And after that, maybe it's interesting to build some models to help us. Maybe we can do some simulation to find out how we can accelerate the progress to reduce the stunting, the children with stunting. So the next step, I asked ChatGPT to help me do some modelings to start by selecting some features and build up the regression models. And then also, I found sometimes ChatGPT can give us, it can be inspiring, but also need to be cautious because sometimes based on the data set, the tables we provided, and also how we interact with ChatGPT, it can provide us some different modeling sometimes. So in that case, we have to be cautious to select which model we would use for our analysis, and also we need to understand, for example, the model, regarding the model, what is there any weakness we should be cautious, but for this project, I didn't pay much attention to to focus on the result, but I just want to see how ChatGPT can can do the modeling for me and create the inputs for me, which allow me to do some simulation, can be some useful simulation, which can be for my analysis. And based on the modeling output from ChatGPT, I went to Tableau to do some visualization to make the simulation I would like to have. So in the end, I'm using the simulation result based on generated from ChatGPT and create some kind of using up the parameters in Tableau to create some visualization, which can be interesting to find out for each country. Maybe there are some different variables impact the stunting rate, and when we try to make some estimation, for example, if we could accelerate the antenatal care rate by 2030 from 60% to 78%, the number of stunting, the number of children with stunting under 5 may be reduced a bit. So that's my objective of how I want to make use of these results to help me do some simulations, and create a comprehensive data story. And that's pretty much about my learning experience from using ChatGPT. And thank you.
Thank you so much. We're always happy to see your Tableau dashboard. So that was really great. So especially when you was talking about using ChatGPT to give you some ideas on visualization, because I realized sometimes that's when you come across a data set that you never see before, like trying to figure out which chart will work can take some time, and ChatGPT save you some time for that. Thank you. And
Thank
last
you.
but not least, Lance.
Yes, I will share my screen, and I wasn't sure if you wanted me to share the actual visualization itself, but I could definitely go through my process. Let me.
Sure, whatever works for you.
Are you guys able to see the visualization?
Yes, we can see it.
So I also use ChatGPT as well to create this Tableau story. My goal was to see how creative ChatGPT could get when creating a story, as well as how good it was with the step-by-step process of creating visualizations. So before I create the visualization, I put the Excel workbook into ChatGPT just to see, give me ideas. I want to use at least 2 of these tabs to create a story. Give me an idea of what I could use. Gave me a bunch of ideas. And I thought the most interesting one was economics and migration. So from there, I tried to have it clean the data of those specific tabs, but I noticed that I had to actually like most of the people, everyone here, I had to manually customize that myself and clean the data because of the headers. So I went back, cleaned the headers, cleaned the data, brought it back into ChatGPT, had them clean the data, and then from there, start my analysis. So from there, I just asked ChatGPT specific questions. Give me an idea of some visualizations that you would think would be interesting for the story. I had my list, but I wanted to compare my list to ChatGPT's list to see if there was something that I was not thinking about. And there were a couple of really good ideas, which was the pros. The cons were that there were some really good ideas, but those columns did not exist in the actual spreadsheet. So I couldn't do that. So I would give that the con. They were really good and it would have been really interesting, but can't do that. So from there, I wanted to see how well it could give me a step-by-step process of creating the visualization, like what I would do versus like what ChatGPT would do. So I had him do a step-by-step process of how I would put the forms in, how they wanted me to format it. Good for the step-by-step process. When it comes to formatting, at least maybe I didn't prompt it correctly. It didn't really give me that much with the format. So I just did that based off my experience. So like the first slide I came up with after like asking for a bunch of visualizations was migrant stock. So this slide represents the total migrant population in terms of percentage. And most people flock towards wealthier countries and economic hubs because of better job opportunities as well as just like stability. It could be quality of life and financially. And then through the data, you also saw that countries that were not had economic challenges as well as like internal conflict, you saw people leave those countries. And an interesting pattern I saw was like the countries that had the highest percentage of migrants were either island nations, cities, sovereign city states, territories of another country, as well as majority of the countries in the Middle Eastern region. And then there was a contrast when it came to actual like the amount of migrants numerically. It was scattered all over the world. So the US had the most by far, and then followed by Germany, Saudi Arabia, Russia, and then the UK. So once I figured out my first slide with the migration and economic indicators, I asked ChatGPT, what should be my next theme? So it came up with oops, did it slide? Dynamics. And there were a bunch of ideas for this, and some of them were not feasible. Like I mentioned, like there were columns that didn't exist, or like once you started playing around with Tableau, you realize that this is not like what I thought would come out. Like I guess like what it's telling me and what actually happened, it didn't come together. But with this chart, this represents migration trends and displacement. So like conflicts and natural disaster are key aspects when it comes to refugees and dispersed populations. And one thing I noticed was that there's no correlation between the number of refugees and internally displaced people. As you can see, like if there was a correlation, both of these would be straight on a downward slope, but you could see it's a little scattered. So for instance, like the top countries here are Iran, Turkey, Colombia, Germany, and Pakistan for the most refugees by asylum. But it's completely different when you go by internally displaced people. The top countries are Sudan, Syria, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Afghanistan. And the only one that had a correlation was Colombia. So you realize there's no direct correlation with this, which I thought was interesting. And then the other thing is that usually when it comes to refugees, then the country that has internal conflict, the neighboring countries usually bear the burden of like getting those refugees. So that causes their numbers to go up. And then the last slide I did was based on ChatGPT's like suggestion was the economic indicators and the migration impact. So trends are influenced by economic stability and allocation. So the higher ODA and government expenditure, the more likely people are going to migrate towards those countries. And also migrants are more likely to go to countries that invest in like healthcare, infrastructure, social protection. So this was kind of indicated by the chart up top. You see there's a positive correlation between the migrant percentage and the amount of ODA. And the one thing that was interesting, the bigger these circles are, because you notice these circles are different sizes, the larger the circle meant the higher migrant population there was in that country. So as you can see, like Jordan, 34% is pretty high compared to like the rest of the data. So they had a higher migrant population. And then of course, because a lot of the countries here are between 2000, like you can't see some of the bigger circles because they're all kind of like with each other, all clustered. And then when it comes to government expenditure, there were different things where the government spends on health, education, social protection, and depending on which way you put it, this tree map drastically changes. So for this one, it's based on social protection. So it has Georgia as like the top one for social protection, Lesotho, Ukraine, Timor-Leste, If I actually switched it to overall government expenditure, you would just switch out Georgia and put the Marshall Islands in there. And because they would actually had the highest government expenditure. But if I were to switch it to like healthcare, Cuba would be on top. If I switched it to education, it would be, let me make sure I pronounce that right, Kiribati. So depending on which type of government expenditure you switched it to, these results would drastically change. I was trying to find a better way to filter it, but when I tried to filter it, like the filter I used didn't give like the exact results, like the accurate results. So I just left it as is. But I did want to put a little filter there. So the other thing with that I did with ChatGPT was, as you could see, you have these little summaries here. I wanted to compare what I wrote for a summary versus what it would write. So I wanted to see how accurate my summary versus their summary would be. And maybe if I put my summary in there, how it would spruce it up. So it gave a pretty good summary. And then I just kind of added my little notes in there to kind of mix and mash them together to see what the kind of get the best of both worlds. So this is my presentation. My main goal was to try and see how creative it can get when it comes to visualizations, as well as see how good the step-by-step process was. If I asked it to like give me a step-by-step process how to create this visualization if I don't know what I'm doing. And I would say it did a pretty good job. There were a few times where like it would create a visualization for you, but it's not exactly what you wanted. But I would say overall, it did a pretty good job of getting it done.
Thank you very much, Lance. That's really interesting because you can use ChatGPT to find patterns and insights and then go back to Tableau and double check the answer, because at the end of the day, sometimes when you use Tableau regular basis, it's easier for you to find the information, but always double check with ChatGPT and see if ChatGPT says something wrong or not. Thank you so much. So thank you everyone for presenting your work. So if we have a couple of minutes left, so if anybody has some questions for our volunteers.
Kevin, you got questions, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll do Lance first. So yeah, so like a couple times you actually said like exactly where ChatGPT played a role. Like at the end you were like, hey, help me out cleaning up the language here. And actually there was like a whole data fam live yesterday, and a friend of mine that's at Chase, he said the same thing of like he has ADHD, so he'll write it out, but he knows like someone should edit this, and so he's tested out that space. What were the other places? I just missed like your workflow where you gave it the data, you gave ChatGPT the data, and then almost
Yes.
used it as like, what would you suggest? What would you suggest? And then you human built the Tableau. So it's more like you let it kind of guide you and just see what it would actually guide you doing. And then that,
Exactly.
okay.
So I human built the Tableau, and yeah, I just let it guide me. So I kind of like had an idea of what I wanted to do, and then through each step I asked it specific questions and kind of saw like took it from there.
Okay. Okay. So ChatGPT, was that the one that recommended like go try that correlation analysis, and then you built it and you're like, well, I mean, nice try. Like I'm not seeing the correlation except maybe in Colombia.
Yeah, so it said try that. It was like this is a good idea, and then I was like, it just told me to do the bar chart. Just this is a good idea, and then I started looking at it. I was like, I personally thought there would be more of a correlation, but then it surprised me when there wasn't. So I kind of kept that in there because I thought that would be interesting.
Yeah.
So it was one
Yeah.
of those things where like certain results I expected, but or some I didn't expect. So, like for instance, like I wasn't thinking it like some of the higher populations would be like a lot of like the sovereign states, but then it made sense because they are smaller populations. So when you go by like ratios and percentages, it's like yeah, it kind of makes sense why they would have like a higher migrant population, but then when you compare it to like numeric, like with the United States, the UK, like they have like it's smaller. So little things
Okay.
like that.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and my main reason why I'm glad that was your answer is you thought, or you've opened my mind to a workflow. I would never have thought of letting it like, what is your analytic intuition of what I should go look for? right? You know, like an analyst that's played with the same data, right? You guys all are in different industries, right? So over the years of playing with the data, you've almost created an intuition from your experience, and you almost like had a little bit of like, well, so what is your analytical intuition? And then see whether or not its analytic intuition is just bogus. So I thought that was kind of a fascinating kind of moment that's there. So
Yeah, and I think part of that was because of just messing with ChatGPT. Like you do a lot of trial and error, just like playing around. So you notice like when you ask certain questions, and like you mentioned, like you see some of the facts, you're like, no, this is definitely not right. So let me see if I can prompt it a different way to get what I want. So a lot of trial and error throughout like the years messing with ChatGPT.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
I think yes, that's what prompt engineering is all about. You need to give a role to ChatGPT. You have to let ChatGPT know that you are an expert in data analysis with many years of experience in data cleaning, and then ask him to clean the data with all that experience. Otherwise, if ChatGPT thinks that they are just a janitor, they won't clean your data set for sure properly.
Yeah. And then
Any
that was
more
gonna be my question for Qiaolong was were so you like I caught the beginning of your medium, so I caught the whole you started trying to use it for data cleaning, and then right it was more work than it was worth. Effectively, you didn't use those words, but I hit that same threshold. And so like you did the human data cleaning, then you actually started using it a little bit for like, okay, now I'm doing the analysis. But what was the rest of your workflow? Were you actually asking it to give you the code in Python to work with MATLAB to do the visual? Or were you asking it like what is it seeing in the data, or like what recommendations are there?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, when I work on, I ask for some database directly, but actually maybe I'm using the paid version. So usually we can see the code generated by ChatGPT, how they use
Okay.
it. And meanwhile, based on the code they generated, so I'm wondering maybe I can modify a bit to add more some customized themes into the chats. So meanwhile, I like have some more rounds of interaction with ChatGPT to ask it to provide to refine the code to like also which allow me to refine the chats.
Yeah.
That's how
Okay.
I work with the codes and the chats with ChatGPT.
Yeah. Yeah, because like in some of these other scenarios, right, since I've done the human experience side of like what's being produced, I can imagine like how good is ChatGPT versus like an entry level Tableau developer, right? As an example.
Yeah.
I don't have experience with like using MATLAB through Python. So like what was your reaction to like how well did it do versus where were you at like your first year in your career, the experience level you are now?
Yeah, I would say in terms of the code generation or if the modification is super powerful compared to because I studied data analytics when I studied at my business school. That time ChatGPT was not launched. So we also used Python to generate some to make some data visualization, make some analysis. That time I've been struggling with the code for a long time because previously I don't have much experience in code at all. So most of the time I was trying to debug my code to fix the code. By that time, only the source I could is to use Google to find out what other people did. And but for now, I would say it's way more efficient that we can ask ChatGPT to help us either generate a code or modify our codes to make our work, I would say, work more smoothly.
Yeah, nice.
That's
What I found,
inspiring.
sorry?
You go, Astrid.
What I found really helpful was to get ChatGPT to suggest me the formatting of a table. If I wanted to generate a particular viz, I could tell ChatGPT what does the Excel sheet need to look like in order for me to build a viz based on that in Tableau. And it gave me the format. Like I would have had to think about that for longer than the machine, and that was speeding up things. That was a helpful point.
What I found interesting is the three of you have used different ways of using the same platform, kind of.
Mhm.
You got different processes, different industries, different experience. You find a way to use ChatGPT to navigate around ChatGPT, but with your own process, which I think is fascinating. We're all different, and then we use a tool differently, but we get to the same outcome almost. I mean, good or bad outcomes. There's a lot of rubbish from personal experience, but it's fascinating that we're getting there slowly. Did I
We
inspire
learn.
you? Did I inspire you to use ChatGPT more for your work? That experiment? Or you said, no, it's too bad, I give up.
Okay, Astrid's nodding her head, yes.
Yeah. Did I inspire you, Astrid?
Yeah, definitely. I probably need more experience to get it to do the things that I really can get help from ChatGPT faster or better output. But I think, yeah, definitely. With more experience, it'll improve the output and the speed. Yeah. I'll keep using these tools, see what I can do. I feel like it expands my skill set a bit without having to learn Python. I can still do a few things, like just when it gets too specific, then I need Python knowledge to see whether it's actually correct what it's writing there. So there's the limit as well.
So I would say with like having the Python knowledge, at least having a background of certain packages and what they do can help. So you like, depending on like if you have a specific type of visualization in mind, you can know which like Python packet to use. For instance, like if you know you want something to be saved as like an SVGT file or interactive, there's specific Python packages for that.
Yeah, good point.
So having just a knowledge of which like library to use, and that would be the same thing like if you were using R or JavaScript or something. Like every language has like its own packets for certain things or libraries.
That's cool. So did you find that experiment useful? I know it's only an experiment and it's an interesting data set, but
for me,
yeah.
Oh yeah, I thought it was fun. I found it useful. I like just to see like how creative it could get. So that was my thing, and and how detailed it gets with like the step-by-step process. I found it really useful. It's just once in a while you just have to check to make sure like it actually ends up what it says it is. But I did find it useful.
Cool.
Yeah, and I didn't finish and I didn't submit, but I found the project useful of like it got me over the hump of like, okay, it's on my to-do list, right? To get past this barrier of like, oh, AI, the fear of AI. And that was a theme in that Data Fam Live yesterday, is that like everybody's all on the same page of like you're concerned about what it might do, you know, taking your job and stuff. But then the more that people were saying like, okay, I've embraced it, like, okay, this thing's not taking my job anytime soon. And then you guys had all the common themes, right? It's in its infancy. It's like a little kid. It forgets the context. I think Astrid was using hallucination. I learned hallucination on this journey. So yeah, it's the phone a friend ability without like when all your friends are asleep, right? But especially that, you know, Data Fam was a Tableau gathering. Someone had a good comment that was like, it'll be a long time before Chat GPT is better than calling somebody in the Data Fam, right? Like just call someone who was really good at Tableau. But if I don't know anybody in Python, like Qiaolong looks like, you know, pretty advanced in MATLAB, and I know that's like an entire other community pocket. I don't have that phone a friend, right? So Chat GPT could be in that space.
And like if you need help with a certain language, like for instance, like Stack Overflow, even if you can't use Chat GPT, there is somebody in Stack Overflow that probably asks the same question as you, or like there's coding, Discord, Reddit, like there's other options as well, just in case like you can't phone a friend.
That's true. Do you all use a paid version of a GPT tool? Or because I haven't dared buying something yet because I don't know which one to buy. Did you all buy something?
No, I used the free version.
Free version.
Okay.
I used the paid version. I just bought ChatGPT for, I thought I'll just pay it for a month and see, because I was running into the limit within 24 hours. I think there was only so much input you could pump in, and then I would have to stop. But now I had time, and then I thought, okay, I paid $20, and I just work with the full thing, and
you pump it.
and just see what I can play around with for a month.
Yeah, I was the same as that.
paid
I just did the $20, and then I got to turn it off. Sorry, Valerie, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, the same thing as you, because I was curious to see the additional features for ChatGPT, and especially the custom GPT that I wanted to try myself. So that's why I had to pay. But and then I'm not using this for work, so I don't need to pay every month. So just one time is interesting to see. And I really like the voice feature, because I can talk to GPT directly, ask questions, and even translate stuff for me. I was like, that would be interesting. If I have to travel to a country where I don't speak the language, for sure, I'll pay I'll pay for it.
And my last question, I think you probably need to wrap up soon. Do you use ChatGPT for work? Like, would your organization allow the use of that kind of tool? Like, Qiaolong, you work for Decathlon, a very big corporate companies in France. Are they very conservative and say, no, turn that off? We don't allow you to use it, or they're quite open for you guys to use it?
Yeah, actually now it's not forbidden, but now we have the Google Gemini.
Oh yeah.
So it's just to use that. But I mean, we are allowed to use generative AI in our work.
And I think companies have Copilot, right? Because Copilot can be is integrated in Microsoft products. So if you pay the license, it's just easier than using ChatGPT.
Organization is very weary about, well, it's mainly the IT department, because I do remember when they freaked out when my colleague downloaded Otter for meeting transcripts, and they freaked out about it. So the IT department is very weary about it for security reasons. So yeah, ChatGPT, maybe in the future, but right now, no.
No.
I guess you have to pay ChatGPT for businesses in that case, but you have to be careful with your data.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with your data. Yeah, I'm in financial services in the United States, right? So we have the extra layer of like, we're regulated, right? The government compliance and things like that. So yeah, we're usually slow to adopt change. Yeah, you're like in medical, or you
so HIPAA laws and all that.
HIPAA laws. Okay. Yeah, that's in there. So there's sort of like a two-prong, yes, there is a group that's formed trying to figure out like what is the safe way to bring AI in. But I think there's a lot of people with the experience of like when they're outside of work, they can use Copilot. It's probably the best example. They use Copilot to like volunteer at school, right? So this one person's like the treasurer of the PTA, and then they come to work and they can't use the tools that they're working. That's right. So they're like, they have more advanced tools, like, not at a really expensive company than they do inside the really expensive company. So yeah, but it's exactly, Lance was saying it too. It's like, there's laws, and it's like, how does this fit within these laws? And the laws are not specific because they don't catch up fast to new technology. So
I think that's all for today. Thanks again, guys, for supporting this for social good.
Yeah, good presentations. Astrid, where can we get your slides? Would you mind posting it maybe back into the Slack? Maybe, or
yeah, sure. Where do you want them? What's the best place to share them?
Yeah, Slack, the project Slack page.
Project Slack. Either put the actual GPT, or if you just got like a Google Drive that you're okay with people sharing.
Because it's good content.
Yeah. Okay,
you get a good summary.
And Qiaolong as well, if you don't mind posting your Medium article in there, in the Slack project space.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty cool.
Your Tableau public. Yeah, go ahead and toss your link into the project folder in Slack.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, to close off, thanks for participating. I know we didn't work with a charity, because normally we work with charities or organizations. So this one was a bit of a fun experiment, but keep an eye on the website. We're working towards getting a project with a real charity. And I hope you can come back and participate and use data with ChatGPT or not, or different tools, and then you can visualize non-for-profit data. Thanks again for participating.
Yeah,
Thanks for organizing this.
Thank you for having us.
Have a good one.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Have a
Valerie.
great day and keep exploring
Bye.
Gen AI.
Yeah.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.